Hello everyone. Or actually, I wanted to start differently, sorry. Namaste. मेरा नाम FABIAN है. मैं Swisscom में Alliance Manager हूँ. Swisscom Switzerland में सबसे बड़ी telecommunications company है. So that's kind of it of my Hindi knowledge. Thanks so much. Sorry, I have to switch to English now. Do you hear me well also in the back?
Yeah.
Good. Okay, excellent. Thanks a lot. Good. Then let me start. So first of all, I'm very thankful to Mr. Gora for the invitation and the whole management of Manzarovar Global University. Thank you very much for having me here today. It's a pleasure to speak to you all. You can click. Maybe I go on the side, it's probably a bit better. So, to this one. Maybe briefly about my background. So I did my studies, as said before, in Basel, which is where I did my BA in economics. Then afterwards I switched, I did my MSc in Copenhagen. And there I had the great opportunity to come for the first time to India, and I did my exchange at the IIM in Lucknow. So first time I was in your beautiful country. Thanks a lot. Then after this I started my career with European Energy as an M&A analyst, and I switched. I did 4.5 years of consulting, and now for more or less a year I joined Swisscom, and there I'm working as an alliance manager. So alliance manager means, between businesses you often have these alliances where they try to work a bit strongly together. They focus on the market together, like the Star Alliance among different airplane companies. So if you have any more questions on that, I'll be happy to answer them at the end. Now, for today, I kind of understood that you have very, very various backgrounds. So we have MBA students, medical students, pharmaceutical, engineers, and so on. So I've tried, with the experience I have from consulting and from my current role, where I'm quite lucky to have the opportunity to see in a lot of different activities, such as product management, marketing, sales, legal, and so on, that from there I've tried to come up with 7 ideas, 7 hints for you can somehow use in your life to become successful in the business world, but also if you go for other directions. Just take it with a grain of salt. Probably, I think for MBA it fits quite well. For everyone else, consider what you want to take from it. You can switch. Thank you. Thanks. So, as I said, I've tried to come up with these 7 lessons. So, the 7 lessons I have is, first of all, it's very important to know who you actually are. It sounds very basic, it sounds very easy, but I think it's one of the most challenging tasks we face in our life is actually finding out who are we. What do we like? What do we want? Who are we? The second one, once you know who you are, try to develop a career plan. Try to have a plan in which direction you want to go. And then once you have this plan, try to achieve it by setting goals, by setting intermediary goals to slowly work towards your ultimate career target. Then of course, in every time people work together, there are politics. And there we'll also try to have a quick look at how to deal with those. Then of course, communication, we know it's one of the most important ones. Thanks. And lastly, once you've done all of this, just do it. Just go for it. I know this sentence has been used so many times, but I still think it's a great one. Go for it. So just move, and for all of this, for the whole circle, try to have fun. Whatever you do, try to enjoy it, because you have only one life, at least for now. So try to make most of this. Good, then let's start with the first lesson. Know yourself. Don't worry, I'm not going to start with a story about Buddha. You anyways know them much, much better than I do. Nonetheless, I think, I said it before, it's one of the most difficult tasks we face in our life, and yet it's one of the most basic. Try to find out who you are. And if you think of it, if you want to become a leader, be it in business or anywhere else, how can you expect other people to follow you if they don't know you? And how can other people know you if you don't know yourself? And this is why I really invite you, try to take some time and invest it in yourself, invest it for yourself. So I've tried to come up with one or two tools or one or two methods to help you discover, or at least do the first steps in discovering yourself. And I think the most basic one, and again, it's a very tricky one, is to find out what are your core values. So there are obviously a lot of different methods, and none of them is always succeeding. But what I would really like you to do is maybe once just take some time for yourself. Think, empty your head, and write down as many values that could speak to you. With values, I mean things like, you know, fairness, justice, openness, curiosity, integrity, equality, and so on. There are dozens of them. Just start by writing down a really long list of things that are somehow speaking to you, you feel good with. And then when you're done, you take a break. Maybe you come back the day afterwards, and you try to reduce that huge list, you reduce it to 15 words. But you still feel these are talking to me. And then once you have the 15, you do the same again. You go down to 10, you go down to 5, and you go to the most difficult tasks, going down to 3 core values. 3 values that are really talking to you. And usually if you've been successful, you will also have maybe some experience, you know, some memories of a moment where one of these 3 values something has been gone against it. You know, when it's, for instance, fairness. One of my core values is fairness. So I have some memories where I feel that people have been treated unfairly, and I get this inner, you know, angriness somehow when I think about these instances. And I think this is a very good indicator for one of your core values. So try to look for those. Now, once you have found your 3 core values, it's very nice also to figure out what is your persona, like how is your character built. Again, there is a plethora of tests you can do online. One of them is the Myers-Briggs type indicator, Mbti. To be honest, I've done it online. I was not very impressed by it. Then I've done it in a seminar with a coach, and there it blew my mind. It is so impressive the way it's built up. So what it basically does, it takes characters and tries to fit it into 4 dimensions. 4 dimensions you can see there are extroversion versus introversion, are detail-oriented versus big picture, are thinking versus feeling, and rule-based or like planning versus more prone to improvisation. These are obviously the extremes. Your character will always be somewhere in between. Sometimes it will be clear, sometimes it will be less. But this system, I personally really find it very impressive because it helps you understand yourself. And actually it's in use by a lot of companies. For instance, the market leader in consulting, McKinsey & Company, they run this test. They run this test among most of their employees, because what it helps them form teams. So the thing is, when you have a team and you manage to have a diverse crowd, so diverse character, diverse types or personas, it's going to be more difficult to manage. Because people just have different approaches, they get angry because of different things, so it's more difficult to manage, but the output will be much, much, much better. So for me personally, for instance, I'm very much a big picture type of guy. So I know when I have to work on details, on the last 20%, you know, to really make everything perfect, I struggle with it. I really do. But when you know that, or when I know that, and I have a project which is going to be a bit more into details, then I know I have to force myself for the last moment, and it's easier to deal with it. And where also can help, if I have the opportunity to build a team for a certain activity, I will always focus on having someone who's a bit more detail oriented and who will help me then pull me in the right direction. And yeah, that's maybe the second point, the second advantage. If you're used to that tool, with a little bit of training, you will be able also to assess your peers, people you interact with, What kind of type could they be? And that will always help you into understanding them a little better and working on your empathy skills. But yeah, I let you draw your own conclusions. On the bottom right, by the way, I've tried, so you'll see during the whole presentation I have a lot of frameworks I will throw at you. I think for everyone you could easily have another hour of discussion, so if you're interested in any of them, feel free. I usually put some links or some books you can read or you can dive into if you feel like it. For the perfect, thank you very much. Lesson number 2, you know yourself now. Oh, what do I do against this? I just come back. Lesson number 2, so now you know yourself. You figured out who you are. Try to have a plan. When I was working in the consulting company, one of the partners told me several times, navigate, don't drift. What does navigate, don't drift mean? It means you have to take your own decisions. Because especially when it comes to career decisions, if you don't do them on time, someone else will do them for you. And that's not necessarily the best one for you. So really have a plan where you want to go. It doesn't have to be fixed. It will change, and that's normal. But just have something. And to have that plan, I actually tried to give you a little template. So if you want to, you can use this one. Just think of your whole life. So you basically try to start from the end, and you think, what are my ultimate goals? What do I want to reach in life? Where do I want to be? Do I want to become a CEO? Do I want to be a successful entrepreneur? Do I want to go into teaching? Do I want to be known for my charity work? Or, I don't know, go into politics? There's a lot of options, a lot of possibilities you can do. And then once you have that ultimate goal, you can think, okay, in 10 years, where do I have to be? So I want to be a CEO, so in 10 years, I should have my own business unit, right? That would make sense. And the same, you can go the same one 5 years back or even in 3 years, and there you have to ask yourself, which skills do I need to learn, and which skills do I need to then develop to reach my final target. So I would really invite you, have a look at this once in a while, do it once, and then a few years later, a few months later, have a look at it again. Does it still make sense? You can have different scenarios in there also. But before you dive too deep into there are 2 very important frame conditions. First of all, health and family. I think health goes without saying. I mean, in general, you have 24 hours a day, just like everyone else. So you have to think, where do I invest in? Do I work an hour more? Do I go running? Or do I spend them with my family? And family is extremely important in this, also in this setting here. Because if you think of it, in 5-10 years, I mean, if you want to go for that ownership of a business unit, if at the same time you have a baby, it's going to be very, very tricky to keep these two points together. So this is something you have to consider. And the second point I would like you to consider with me are megatrends. Megatrends are developments, huge trends that go in a certain direction and that will most likely influence your career in one way or another. I'll give you an example. For me, a megatrend is technology. We all know Elon Musk. We know he likes to provoke a little bit. However, he said last year, in 5 years, artificial intelligence will be more powerful than the human brain. So what does that mean for us? So don't worry, I'm not trying to prepare you for a war on robots. Nonetheless, you have to ask yourself, what does that mean for me? Remember the question I had, what skills do I want to develop? You have to ask yourself, what skills do I need when you have artificial intelligence that is more powerful than a human brain? I mean, an example, will we still need drivers in 10 years or 20 years or whenever automated cars are sufficiently reliable and safe, will we need drivers? And I mean, a lot of jobs are already affected by it. I mean, there's a lot of startups, there's a lot of already algorithms in AI that take a lot of the work of lawyers, for instance, to make it easier for them. But to make it easier is just step 1. The question is, really you have to ask yourselves, which type of skills do I need to be still able to compete globally in 20 years, in 30 years. The second mega trend I would like to bring with you, to bring with me, is the way we work together. You see the army, the picture of the two soldiers there. Well, when I say army, usually the first thing you will think of is marching, information, is hierarchy, is clear line of orders. However, do you know how a commando is organized? Do you know how Navy SEALs work? Well, Navy SEALs, it's usually a small team. It's a small team of extremely highly trained specialists who are very, very good at what they do, but they have a certain expertise. They're all specialists. Now they are in the field, they are behind enemy lines, where every second counts. Now, do you really think they have the time to call their sergeant, can I do, I don't know, action XYZ? And the sergeant then will turn to the lieutenant and ask the same question, who will then go upwards to the major. By then, the team has lost. And this is something a lot of companies start to realize. Especially companies where speed matters. They realize that they have to become faster. And just going always up and down some hierarchy levels will waste a lot of time. So for instance, in IT, we work much more with agile processes, which means that the manager does not give directions anymore. The manager is just there to let the specialists, people who report to him, do the job. And the people who report to him, they take the actual decisions because they're much closer. They know what will work and what won't work, and then also the quality becomes better. So the work of a manager in that moment, he's actually a servant of his own reportees. What he does is he eliminates the roadblock for them. He's not going to give directions anymore. That also means less managers are required, less management levels are required. And so for me personally is also the question, do I want to go into people management knowing that there will be fewer and fewer people managers in the future? So this is something I would invite you to think in your own industry or for your own career plan, which megatrends could be affecting you. And I hope it works, no? And actually, I would invite you to share this with me. So I know you all have smartphones. I'm not sure how well the coverage is in here, mobile coverage, but I would invite you to take out your smartphone, open your browser. Don't worry, there's no need to download anything. And then you go on www.menti.com. And once you're there, you type in the code 1252649. I hope it works. If it does, you should have the question which megatrends do you see affecting you? So I would invite you just to type in one or two you can think of that will actually, where you feel they will impact you. I think there's already, just feel free to add some stuff if you feel like it. What I want to do in the end, I will take a screenshot of this and I will add it to the slides, and I hope there's a way of making it available to all of you. So you can see when you have more time once, I would invite you to sit down, and then you can also see what your colleagues and peers have thought of. Yeah, so if you look at it, I mean, there's already quite a lot of interesting points. I mean, yes, sustainability is a big movement, is a big mega trend. Just before I had a very interesting discussion about what's going to happen with scarcity of water. I think, yeah, I'm quite lucky in Switzerland. Nonetheless, also there it will impact us. Same goes with, I saw clouds, software as a service somewhere. I mean, the whole clouds, it's already impacting quite a lot of technologies, quite a lot of industries, and quite a lot of work, quite a lot of jobs. If suddenly we don't need the infrastructure everywhere, but you can basically, I mean, you can do things like this. I don't even need to write down things anymore. I mean, these are a lot of interesting points that in the end you will have to consider when you do your own career plans. Okay, let's see if we manage to go back. Can I just do this? That would be too easy. No. Nice. Good. All right. Now you've established your career plan. Great. Now what do you do next? What do you do next? You put it into action, of course. And if you think of it, if you, for instance, want to climb a mountain, what do? You do one step at a time, and you think, what could be an intermediate target? Think about Mount Everest. They have base camp as well. So what I would ask you, what I would invite you to do once you have your career plan, think about intermediary goals. And don't think about goals that will be there in 3 years, because they're way too far ahead. Think about something that you can reach in the next 6 months, 12 months at maximum. And once you have that, and that's where it becomes interesting. You all know all companies become more and more data driven. So that means for you, when you have your targets, when you have your goal, your intermediary goal, your tangible goal, you have to think, how can I measure this? How can I measure the success? How can I see, am I going in the right direction? Or is it wrong? And also in the end, how can you measure the impact your measure had? So, like for instance, let's take an example. Let's say you've just joined a company, you're a marketing junior, and this company has, I don't know, a small delivery service. It's doing so well, more or less. Now, you've just recognized that and you think there might be some potential. So what you're going to do, you're going to approach a senior manager. You say, sir, madam, I would like to improve our delivery service. I'm going to start with the website. I want to revamp our website until May this year. So you have a clear goal, you have a tangible goal, you know where it is, it's very soon. And until then, with my revamping, my goal is to increase the click rate by 20%, to increase the average time spent on the website by 30%, and of course, money talks, to increase the revenue generated from the website by 5%. Now, if you have this, and on the other hand, you have reasonable costs next to it, I'm quite sure your manager will be very happy to give you the opportunity to let you shine. And this is exactly the way you should approach it. So this way of setting targets, actually, you can use it for anything. You can also use it for your private life. Like if you want to, I don't know, you want to read more, or you want to become fit. Like in the example, no problem. So this way of setting goals is part of a very, in my opinion, very powerful method called objectives and key results. So it's actually a much broader framework, which is extremely powerful because it lets you align your strategy among huge companies. But yeah, I gotta admit I'm a bit biased because I'm an OKR coach. But I think it's a really, really good method, which is why I also included you one or two links down there. And yeah, probably you've never heard of it, but I can guarantee you a lot of companies use it and they're very happy with it. One of them you might know, they've implemented very, very early and they still use it. It's the small g down there. So you can see you can achieve very great things with it. Now, I've given you a way of selling a project. If you approach your manager, you've told him, hey, I want to do this revamp of the website. The manager might be impressed, but the problem is he has a lot of other projects to choose from. So he might just go with another one and he doesn't have enough capacity to do a second one. Or even worse, he could go for your idea but say, oh, the idea is good, but I think I trust that guy a bit more, so I'm gonna give the project to him. That would be really annoying for you. Now, there can be a lot of reasons why that happens. A lot. It can be rational, it can really make sense, but one reason that will always, that can always come is politics. You just might like this guy more than you. Anything like that. I mean, you've all seen series like House of Cards, like Suits, or to be honest, my personal favorite example is Shakuni in Mahabharat. But it's exactly that. It's exactly that. It's politics. You really have to be aware every time a group of people work together, you always have some people liking some others, disliking those. It'll always happen. So my honest advice is, there's always a negative and a positive side to politics, right? So my honest advice is, don't engage in negative politics. It's very easy to say, because when you're there, you have emotions too, and it's completely natural. But try to put them aside and think rationally, coldly rationally, what's the best thing for me and the company? And I promise you, with that, in the long run, you will work much better. Now, positive side of politics, I can really recommend if you give a compliment if you compliment someone who's not present, it's a very powerful tool. Because what's going to happen? The person you've complimented who wasn't there, but who will hear from it, obviously will like you, because you've been very nice to them without them even being there. But the other person, that be the manager, he will also, how can I say, the triumph of the other person will also shine on you. So really take this as a small hint. If you can compliment someone else, even when they're absent, especially when they're not around, it'll help you. But let's start first things first. In order to deal with politics and that they don't go against you, you have to build your reputation. People have to know what you stand for. And the two values that are most sought after, or some of them at least, are trustworthiness and flexibility. So try to come across as someone who's worthy of your trust, someone who's motivated and someone who's flexible. So best thing you can do is keeping deadlines, for instance. It's very basic, but already that will help you. And when you can, go the extra mile. So when I was in consulting, you have a lot of change of clients, right? So every 3-4 months you change project and you have clients who pay for you, who pay a lot of money for you every day. So somehow they need to be happy, they need to have a good impression of you. So what a lot of my colleagues did, they did something called under-promise and over-deliver. Very easy again, very silly, but what you do is basically you tell your client, hey, I'm gonna have the PowerPoint, the document, ready as a first draft version Friday. And then Wednesday night, you already sent him the document, not only as a first draft version, but already really looking good. Very easy thing, but the client immediately will have the feeling, wow, he really goes above and beyond for me. And that's something, try to use it wherever you are. This is something you can use in business, you can use it somewhere else also. In general, I would say soft skills. Soft skills is something extremely important when you build your own reputation. Soft skills like teamwork, like empathy, like time management. There's a lot of them. And usually, and they're going to be honest, they won't help you land a job. But what they will let you shine in the one you have. Because suddenly you are really having a strong reputation among the whole business, among everyone else, among the whole organization. And actually, maybe the next step, once you've built your reputation, the question is, how will you deal with others? Do you deal with others? You want to avoid politics, but how do you deal with others? And there, again, the big advice I can give you, try to go for as many coffees, teas, whatever you can with your peers. Not only with your peers, with people higher than you in the organization, but also lower. The bigger, the stronger, the bigger your network is, the more vast it is, and the more diverse, the stronger it will be. And there, a little psychology will go a long way. So there again, I can give you a little story. So when I came to India for the first time in 2013, I think, it was great. We studied a little bit, but mainly we went to travel around and visit this beautiful country. And yeah, of course, we went to a bit remote places, but also a bit more touristy places. Varanasi, Agra. So what happens there? Of course, sooner or later, you're gonna end up in a shop where someone wants to sell you, I don't know, carpets, whatever it is. And there really open your eyes and ears, because usually there you deal with master psychologists and negotiators. It's really impressive, because what do? First, they will show you around. They will not try to sell you anything. They will just show you around, how does everything work? How do you do a carpet? So you already build up emotion, right? Then when the tour is over, they will invite you for a chai. And there, this is what's really interesting. First of all, of course, they give you a treat, so you kind of feel already the need to give back something. But while you wait for the chai, you could very easily already start talking business. but they don't. They don't. They will wait until the chai is here. They will do small talk with you. And why? Psychologists know the moment you have something warm in your hand, you're much more likely to say yes. And this is something, I mean, what's the moral of the story? Try to invite as many people as you can for chai or coffee. It's as simple as that. And lastly, of course, the golden rule, treat others as you want to be treated. I guess we have all learned this as a kid. It still applies in business, it applies in every industry you want to go. Respect other people just like you want to be respected. Yeah. No? Can you unplug it maybe? Because now comes the great moment for all the people loving frameworks, tools, concepts. I can present you this, or I will try to present you the Stakeholder Matrix. Did I maybe press something wrong? Oh no. Thank you. Yes, the Stakeholder Matrix. So it's actually very easy, but it's quite powerful. So what's going to happen? You have a new job, you have a new project, something new. Well, first, of course, you kind of have to know who are the people involved. Once you have done that, what you do is you take them, you write their names down on this matrix here. Maybe make sure they don't see it. Nonetheless, what you do, you kind of have 4 groups of people, right? I think if I go in this sense, maybe better. You have 4 groups of people. First of all, you have the people who have a lot of influence, but are not very interested in your projects. Top management is usually a good example. These people you have to keep satisfied. Keep satisfied means give them information and tell them what's the status, but really try to limit as much as possible. Don't bother them. Just let them know there's something happening and keep them on your side. Why do you want to keep them on your side? These are the people, when you encounter a problem, they will help you. They will make it disappear. Remember I talked about servant leaders before? These people will help you. Then you have people with low influence power, but high interest. These, you really have to keep them in the loop. They have to feel they're a part of it, because they will help you a lot. They will help you when you need help, when you don't have enough time, when you need new ideas. These are the people whose brains you can pick. And even more importantly, these are the people who will do lobbying for you. I mean, think of someone who's quite low in the hierarchy, but maybe he knows the CEO very well. I mean, someone like this, having them on your team will help you a lot. And then, of course, you have the superstars of your project, people with high power and high interest, usually like an executive sponsor, something like this. These are the people you have to be really close, because obviously they will really make things happen. They will give a drive. And lastly, people with no interest or low interest and low power, don't forget about them. They should not be your priority, but don't forget about them. Not that at some point they have something or you go against them in any way. So, what does this tool do? I think now you have a clear priority where you want to start with your chais and coffees, right? Good. Now, we come to the next factor. Extremely important factor. How do we communicate? I think you and I, we all know there's a lot of mistakes happening in communication. A lot of them. Well, I think now it's again time for you to think a little bit and tell me what you've encountered, what you feel are the most important or the most frequent mistakes in communication. So once again, I would give you a few minutes. Please bear with me, go on Mbti.com, and this time try the code 648268. And I'm going to give you another 3 minutes. And please tell me what you think are the most common mistakes we do when we communicate. Good. Yeah, that already makes a lot of sense to me. Thanks a lot. Yeah, so I fully agree with you. I mean, there's a lot of really good things to include. Yeah, of course, mind your words. Language barrier obviously doesn't help. I hope this one is not a hint for me, but I think you've hit the nail on the head, as you would say in Germany. Absolutely. I think the 2 points you have, the 2 points I wanted to share with you, you've absolutely nailed them. First of all, too long. And second of all, lack of empathy. Always think, who are you addressing? Who are you addressing? Who is the person you will talk to? Who is the person you will meet? Can you go back on the text? Who is the person you will address? Of course, you will always have to answer for yourself the question, what do they really want to hear? What do they need to know? For instance, the head of sales in a big company, he will always get a lot of emails. He will have so much traffic, so he can only focus on little points. And does he really need to know every little aspect of the product he has to sell? No, he wants to know about projections. He wants to know maybe about the main arguments to sell it. But that's it. Thanks. No, too fast. Same way towards the engineers. Also engineers, they will be more interested in the working of their product and not at some decision about the branding of a product or something like this. And the same goes with a CEO. A CEO gets, I don't know, 2, 3, 4, 500 mails per day, probably even more. And do you think he really has the time then or does he really need to know what happened in that meeting, word for word, the points that have been discussed? No. He just has to know what are the main decisions and what are the follow-up actions. So one thing I would like to add here is, of course, cultural background. I think someone also put it, very nice. If you work internationally at some point, please be aware that there are cultural differences. Of course, it's a bit extreme again, but there are 2 main groups, high context, low context. That means that in some cultures, people say very explicitly what they mean, such as in the US or in Germany, for instance, or also in Scandinavia. People tend to be very straight to the point. And then there are other cultures, Switzerland, India. When we talk, you have to infer much more from the context. You have to feel what is actually being said. So I mean, when I came to India first time, they always told me, when you offer food, people will say no, even if they want the food. They will say no once, they will say no twice, maybe the third time they will say yes. And that's the reason why I can say no 100 times and I will still get fed the delicious puris of my mother-in-law. And I will grow here more and more. But yeah, that's the deal I made. So, and of course, for the fans of concepts, I don't want to disappoint you. I have a couple of cool ones again. So, I said know your audience. People, age, background, culture. And now, there is one very important concept called the pyramid principle. That's the way you communicate. So when I was a student, I remember all my assignments had to follow a very clear structure. You start with an introduction, then you have description, theory, analysis, outcomes of the analysis, and then you reach the conclusion. Now, I just said how little time a CEO has to read emails. He doesn't have the time to read through all that. So what do? We just shift it. We start with the conclusion. First thing you read is it's basically the end. How does the whole thing end? What's the conclusion? And even if that is too long, you put an executive summary on top. So the CEO can decide, okay, that's enough, I know what I need to know, and he can stop reading. But if he's more interested and he needs more arguments, he can keep reading, and then he will get to the supporting statements, so the outcomes of your analysis. And even that, if even that is not enough, or someone else needs to have more information, they keep reading, and then they find the numbers, the number crunching, the methodology, whatever you would like to add. And I mean, I think you realized introduction, description, theory are usually dropped, or at least reduced to a minimum. Why is that? I mean, sorry, we've just missed Valentine's Day. Nonetheless, when you communicate, always remember to kiss. It's very sweet, isn't it? Of course, depending who you're communicating, there can be a very open definition. The one I mean for kiss today is keep it short and simple. Now I can come with a really nice quote. Einstein once said, or is supposed to have said, if you cannot explain a concept to a 6-year-old, you've not understood it correctly yourself. And that's keep it short and simple. So really try to be as short as you can and really be concise. Because don't forget, communication, also I've been talking now about communication, how do you communicate? So I've been focusing on the sender, but communication goes both ways. Don't forget the person who's hearing you, because if you manage to keep it short, that person has more time to react. That person has more time to speak, and the more that person speaks, the more you will understand what they mean, the more you will learn from them, and the more they will also like you. And another framework I have, which is maybe more applicable if you have a short text or a short email to write, but it's a very nice go-to structure. It's again from McKinsey. It's SCR, situation, complication, recommendation. Very straightforward. Yeah. So I can give you again an example. For the situation, you start by explaining, hey, where were we? So for instance, we are a company, we were in a stable commodity market, third in market share. Then what happened? A new competitor has entered the market relying only on an online platform. So he has much less cost and he can offer much cheaper than we do. Then recommendation, what should we do? We would like to launch our own platform, our own app, whatever. And we have the strategy team having a look into that by the end of the month. So everyone knows where we were, everyone knows what has changed, and everyone knows what's going to happen. They know who will do what until when. I think you've heard the way I've pronounced this one already. This is, I think, a central sentence in business and probably in every organization. Who will do what until when? Why? There are so many extremely smart people out there. So many. And they have even more great ideas. But what happens with these ideas? People are in a meeting. Someone says a great idea and everyone, oh yes, we should do that. And that's it. That's it. No one picks it up because everyone thinks, yeah, they will do it, don't worry. And then they get lost, which is actually quite sad. So the moment you as a junior, you will join a company, a project, whatever it is, you don't need to know anything about the project. In this situation, if you want to add value, you just ask the question, who will do what until when? And usually the what is quite easily answered, but who and until when, this is tricky. And this is going to be very intimidating because you will have to be very persistent with people who are much more senior than you. But just keep asking that question until you get an answer. And the moment you have the answer, you write it down and you send it out to everyone, because then it's fixed, then it's done. If you keep doing this, people will look at you in a weird way, they won't enjoy it. But if you do it consistently, people will recognize you as what you are. You are a doer. You are someone who makes sure that things happen, that things advance. You are nothing else but a leader. So, I've given you a lot of tools. I've explained you how to discover yourself, how to plan your career, how to set goals, how to deal with politics, and how to communicate. And now, one tiny little thing is missing. It's the hard work. It's the blood, the sweat, and the tears. And there, again, a personal recommendation, especially in the beginning, go for that. Really go for that. I'm a bit too early with this. Really go for that. If a business is nice and going smoothly, that's cool. You will see, you will learn a lot. It's going to be easy going. But if a business, if a project, if anything is failing, that's where you learn. That's where you learn a lot. So just be there, just be a part of it. It's going to be tough. But if you think of it, nothing can really happen to you. Try not to be part of the problem. Be open to change. But if you are open to change, you can only win, because it's going bad. So you join, it's still going bad. Oh well. Couldn't help it, you still learned a lot. But if you manage to turn around, you get all the glory. And the thing is, if you manage to turn around, you will have learned which things did not work and which things did work. And this is actually something that's invaluable. So especially in the beginning of your career, don't go for package. Don't go for brand name, go for where you can grow, go for where you can learn, go where you can learn from other people, and go where you can grow personally as a person and into a leadership role. So I've just told you you can learn a lot from failures. Now I think this is the moment where I especially would ask the medical and pharmaceutical students, probably also the civil engineers, don't listen too closely. But I personally am convinced that in my industry, for instance, it's always better to ask for forgiveness than for permission. What does that mean? Just go ahead and if it doesn't work, fail, like this. Just go ahead and do your mistakes. Mistakes will always happen. They will. The only way you will avoid to do mistakes is to not work, to not do anything. But I can promise you from mistakes you learn the most. The only rule there is try to avoid doing the same mistake twice. If you manage to stick by that rule, you will learn. It means you learn. This is the very essence of how you advance. Thanks. So as I said, I think experience is going to be your best teacher throughout life. And there, I could give you a lot of, there's again a lot of quotes. If you want them, you can go online to look for them. There's fail hard, fail fast. You cannot fail, either you win or you learn. There's a lot of them. I prefer giving you another concept. I could have given you any agile method, but I think Lean Startup is the easiest and the most intuitive one. So basically what you do is you start with a hypothesis. So you have an idea in mind and you just somehow try to do a mock-up of it. It doesn't have to be perfect. Actually, it mustn't be perfect. Just have something that somehow works. A very good friend of mine is actually working, his job is to build up startups. So he always spends 3-6 months in a startup, just builds it up and then switches to the next one. And he works basically only with that method. So what he does is sometimes he builds up websites with an offer, but that offer doesn't exist yet. So people click on it, and usually then they get angry if they realize it doesn't work. But he will have learned an invaluable lesson. He will kind of have failed because his customers are angry, but he knows now there is demand for it. So what happens? Again, you do your hypothesis, then you put it on the field, and you learn. You gather as much data as you can from it. And from this data, you come again up, you sharpen your hypothesis. And then again, you do the same cycle and again and again and again. What this makes this method, it's super fast. It's extremely rapid. You're very fast in the market. And once you have a product, it's going to be really good. Because who helped to develop it? The customers, the client himself. Not knowingly, but he helped to develop the perfect product which exactly meets his needs. So what does that mean again for you as a leader? It means just go ahead, do it, try, fail, as long as you learn from it. As long as you gather data and next time you try it a little bit differently. That's the way you will advance. Can you go on full screen again? Ooh. So, a little word of advice. So I basically told you, just go ahead, just run for it. And I still think it's good advice. However, sometimes you can end up in a position where you're completely submerged. You want to do so many things, your head is underwater and you swim, but you forget to come up and to look around what is outside of the water. And this is extremely important. And to be honest, it's something I'm not very good at either. I always have to force myself to do it. But come up, take a step back, look around you. What is happening? What are we doing? Because this is the time when you have new ideas. This is the time where you start new things. And this is also the time where you can think, and that's maybe even more important, you can think, what are we doing? Are we doing it correctly? How are our processes? Are they way too complicated? Or sometimes, and to be honest, frighteningly often, you can even ask yourself, do we actually need to do what we do there? And quite often you can just skip it. So this is very important that you keep that in mind, to take a time off sometime and just think about it. And lastly, of course, the most important part, have fun. You can't read it much. Have fun. Enjoy your work. You will never excel if you don't enjoy what you do. I mean, based on your values, based on your persona, and based on your experiences, try to find what you really want to do. It's going to be trial and error, and fail, and try again, until you find what you really want to do. It's really important that when you go to bed, you don't dread the next morning. It doesn't mean that you have to be constantly smiling at work, because that might make you look a bit weird, but still, you have to know where you want to go and what you want to do. And once you have that, I mean, even if you go through rough patches, sometimes you'll have moments which are tricky, which are annoying, which are not nice. But please bear with them and go through them until you find what you really want to do and what you're good at. Now, we are through with our 7 lessons. I have a little bonus for you coming, but this time with a request. I firmly believe in the sentence, feedback is a gift. So it's very important for you, the more you grow, that you learn to receive feedback, to improve on feedback, but also to give feedback. And giving feedback is can be quite tricky. So you really need to learn how to give feedback to people who report to you. It's important to give feedback to people who are on the same level, but also to people who are your seniors. And it is very tricky. Still, for me, this was my first lecture like this. So I would ask you, please tell me, what did you think about it? Was there something you could take for yourself? And please let me know also what I can improve for next time, because it was quite fun. And yeah, thanks in advance. So this concludes, thanks. This concludes my 7 lessons. Thank you very much. Thank you a lot for your attention. Thanks for bearing with me. Yeah, I will gladly answer your questions now. If the picture comes back, there will also be a QR code. If you feel like connecting with me on LinkedIn, feel free to drop me a line or anything. It's been a pleasure, and yeah, I'm open to questions now. Thank you very much. Yes, so for feedback, there is another Mbti. It would be, again, on Mbti.com. The code is 8709246. I will not share it. I will have a look at it myself. And yeah, thank you very much.
Sir?
Yes.
Sir, which country is better to do business, either China or India?
Ooh.
Working environment,
Well, I got to be honest, I don't have any experience with China. I just know for foreigners, it's very difficult to do business in China because you need a joint venture with a Chinese company. So that makes it a bit tricky. So you have a bit higher entry barriers. Whereas I think in India it's much easier. And to be honest, every time I come to India, I remember first when my wife was working in Gurgaon 6 years ago, there was really not much. And now Gurgaon is huge. So for me, India, but that's a personal opinion, for me, India is always the land of the possibilities, of growth, of things happening. You know?
India has different level of customer, so you can do business easily.
Mm-hmm. I think so too. I think it's more prone to business, but that's my personal opinion. So no guarantees. Mm-hmm.
Good afternoon.
Maybe this
Good afternoon, sir. I just wanted to ask is franchising better or startup better?
Okay, so the question was franchising versus startup.
Yeah.
It's a tricky question once again. It depends on a lot of factors, of course. But yeah, so I guess when you say franchising, you ask if you take the franchise, not give it, but you're the person opening the
Yeah, I
restaurant.
am the one.
Okay. Well, I mean, again, I have not much experience in franchising, so I will try to do my best. Now, of course, with franchising, you will have less risk, right? You start with a brand that's already there. You can rely on a lot of structures which are already in place. You have HR, you have accounting, all of these things. If you're lucky, it depends always who is the giver, but if you're lucky, you don't have to take care of those, or just to a limited point. So that obviously helps you. And you can learn also from you have peers, right?
Yeah.
So if you don't have much experience and you really believe in, I mean, of course you need to believe in what the franchise is about. I think this is probably the easier way to start with and maybe to get experience. But I guess entrepreneurship, starting your own thing, is more rewarding because it's your baby, right? And the other thing, you copy someone else's. Yeah.
Thank you.
Does that answer your question?
Yes, sir.
Sir, as you have talked about political level in India, do you think Indian politics is good for doing business in India?
Dangerous question.
We have many constraints in India, like क्या बोलते हैं उसको? What do you think about?
How is the ease of doing business in India as well?
Well, again, not enough experience, but I think again India is very open, right? I mean, there's a lot of ties already through the whole IT industry, which is very strongly, and I think India has already positioned themselves as a very, very strong global player when it comes to service delivery. So the whole outsourcing industry is extremely strong here. So I think this is a good start. And I mean, the whole idea of getting foreign investments to India, of course, helps. Now, how good they are, to be honest, I cannot really judge. How good they work, I don't know. I just know there was the whole idea with invest in India, and I thought the idea in general was good. How well it was implemented, I cannot answer.
Check.
So what could be a tips to save a startup which is failing at an initial stage, sir?
Oh, you will have to give me more details on that. So the question was tips for startups in the beginning if they're failing.
Yes, sir.
I mean, they can fail for so many reasons, right? I would have to guess a lot. Is the question really general, or do you have a specific scenario in mind?
Sir, like for example, if I start a coaching center and like something related to teaching.
Okay, so basically more like challenges when you open a teaching startup. Well, to be fully honest, I think you have an expert sitting just there who will probably answer the question much better than I ever could. Yes.
So education is mostly, you follow a lot of norms and regulations. Because in education, when you're doing something, it's not you're not selling a commodity or a product. You're actually imbibing upon values and knowledge to students who are living beings. So when a consumer goes out in the market to buy a smartphone, he looks at Samsung, Apple, Hitachi, this, that, whatever, and I guess Hitachi does not make phones, but yeah. So a number of companies, and then he decides after a long time. Imagine the same consumer going into the market looking for an educational institution for his son's or daughter's career. So buying a smartphone itself, when he's so conscious, if he have to buy education, he has to get education for his son or daughter. You can imagine the amount of expectations he'll have. So what you're going to do is, I think, the most difficult job. But if you are conscious enough and empathetic enough towards the students, I think you can do it. This is more emotional than commercial, so you have to keep that in mind.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks for saving me.
Sir, after COVID, many people have lost their business. What would you suggest to do to start a new, and how? It is very difficult to start new without money.
It is.
Nowadays, what is happening? E-learning and e-kind of concept is coming one by one. So, what would you suggest to do new entrepreneurs to do? What can they do to start new business, and how?
Well, again, I won't be able to answer the question perfectly, because else I would be doing it right now. But what I can tell you is, in the end, remember when I presented the mega trends in the beginning with technology and with the way we work together. COVID is nothing else but, again, a mega trend which enforces certain things and also weakens others. So what happens is, tourist industry, they struggled a lot, like international tourist industry, the cruise industry, for them it was a disaster. So the question is, and that is something you will have to find out and figure out for yourself, but the question is, do you believe, for instance, cruise industry or whole tourist industry will go back as it was before, or will it change? So I said the cruise industry, for instance, was suffering. On the other hand, IT, telecommunication, Zoom, Microsoft Teams, all of these products, they just went through the roof. So again, it's trying to think critically what happened, right? So what happened is our mobility was very strongly hindered, so we could not move that much anymore. But still, we need somehow to communicate with other people. So exactly there, for instance, is a new need that came into the market that was not. It was there before, but it was less strong. Then I think deliveries went, at least in Switzerland, delivery business went through the roof again, because people needed to shop without leaving their house. So there are a lot of small needs and shifts in demand which completely change the market. And when there is change, you always have winners and you always have losers from an industry perspective. And every time when you have a change like this, you always have opportunities. So these opportunities, you have to find them. Now, as to how to do that, well, that's always the question. I would suggest try and fail, but of course the question is, can you finance that? The whole financing part is going to be extremely difficult right now, and there I must say I don't have a patented solution either. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for your time. It's been a pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for the much needed words of enlightenment. Now, I would request respected Shefali Tripathi ma'am, Professor and Head, Faculty of Management, to give the word of thanks.
A very good afternoon to one and all. I think so you all enjoyed this session. Yes or no? Yes. Did you learn something today? Yes. Now I hope so many leaders would be seen in future coming years. Am I right? Yes. Okay, with these words, and a very good afternoon again. I, Dr. Shefali Tripathi, HOD of MBA Department, on behalf of the whole Mansarovar Global University, would like to thank our guest speaker, Mr. FABIAN, for visiting and enlightening us with his knowledge and experience. Mr. FABIAN, your lecture was really full of knowledge and interesting things. It gave deep insights into the topic and also revealed many interesting facts. I'm also pretty sure the precious knowledge that Mr. FABIAN shared with us will definitely help us and our students for their studies and for their future career prospects. Once again, I would like to thank Mr. FABIAN and Mrs. Tanisha SCHROEDER for taking out time from their busy schedule and enlightening us with their knowledge. I would also like to thank all our senior dignitaries, faculty members and students for the kind attention and valuable presence. Thank you. Thank you very much. Have a nice day.